You're aware that Steve derives from the Greek, Stephanos, i.e. crown.
Can you believe what's happening? My little doodle bug floating out in space all by his lonesome.
She was my old co-star from Family Matters. Right. And she died of stomach cancer. Quickly. Michelle Thomas was a part of my confidence building. And she made herself a part of that. And then our relationship just kind of blossomed from there.
When Michelle Thomas took her final breath on December 22, 1998, she carried secrets that Family Matters never revealed to its millions of viewers. Truths about her illness, her struggles, and the show's dark realities that remained hidden behind the sitcom's laugh track.
How did that happen? I'm gonna go investigate this right now.
While most fans remember the show for Jaleel White's iconic Steve Urkel character, Michelle's story remained buried in the shadows, often overlooked despite her incredible contribution to the series. Not only was her career cut tragically short, but Michelle was also battling her own heartbreaking struggles that few ever knew about.
I remember even for a while she worked as a waitress, and she would work way out, like Palmdale, because she didn't want anybody in LA seeing her.
So how did Michelle Thomas's secret battle with cancer, combined with the behind-the-scenes tensions on Family Matters, lead to a tragic, hidden story that many cast members carried for years? Michelle Thomas was born on September 23, 1968, in Boston, Massachusetts. As the daughter of Dennis Jet Thomas, a musician with the band Kool and the Gang, and Finjuar Thomas, a stage actress, Michelle was surrounded by entertainment from an early age. Growing up, Michelle developed a passion for performing that would eventually lead her to television screens across America.
What would you like to do in the future, career-wise?
Well, actually, there's so many different fields to go into now, and so many that I want to go into, that right now I'm just taking different courses in school.
This wasn't just a casual interest. It was a burning ambition that would shape her career and ultimately define her legacy in Hollywood. Even as a young actress, Michelle had a vibrant energy and natural talent that drew people to her. Her charisma was undeniable, and it seemed like she was destined for a bright future in the entertainment industry. But life had other plans. While Michelle's talent quickly caught the attention of casting directors and producers, her time in the spotlight would be tragically brief. Before Family Matters made her a household name, Michelle Thomas was already making her mark in the entertainment industry. Her first major breakthrough came when she was cast as Justine Phillips on The Cosby Show in 1988. As Theo Huxtable's girlfriend, Michelle brought charm and depth to what could have been a simple, recurring character.
I was just rewarding Theo for knowing his mythology.
Her chemistry with Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played Theo, was undeniable. The pair's on-screen romance resonated with viewers, capturing the awkward yet tender nature of young love. What most fans didn't know at the time was that this on-screen relationship sparked a real-life romance between Thomas and Warner. Their connection was genuine, and though they kept their relationship relatively private, those who knew them saw the authentic bond they shared. This success on The Cosby Show opened doors for Thomas, and in 1993, she landed her most recognizable role as Myra Monkhouse on Family Matters. As Steve Urkel's devoted girlfriend, Michelle created a character that was both hilariously obsessive and endearingly sweet. When Michelle Thomas joined the cast of Family Matters in its 4th season, the show was already undergoing significant changes. What had begun as a family-centered sitcom was increasingly becoming The Steve Urkel Show.
Are you wearing a bra?
Jaleel White's nerdy character had captured the nation's attention, transforming from a one-off guest appearance into the show's undisputed star. This shift created behind-the-scenes tensions that few outside the production knew about. As Myra Monkhouse, Michelle provided the perfect counter to Urkel's awkward charm. Her character's obsessive love for Steve created some of the show's most memorable moments and gave the series a fresh dynamic that audiences loved.
What's happening? My little doodlebug floating out in space all by his lonesome.
Despite her growing popularity on the show, Michelle was navigating a complicated work environment. Some cast members had begun to resent the overwhelming focus on Urkel, while others struggled with their diminishing roles. Reginald VelJohnson, who portrayed family patriarch Carl Winslow, later acknowledged that working with White could be difficult at times. As White grew up throughout the series, there were even concerns about his maturing appearance not fitting the Urkel character, leading producers to take measures to preserve his boyish look. During this period of behind-the-scenes tension, another controversial decision rocked the show. Jamie Foxworth, who played youngest daughter Judy Winslow, was abruptly written out of the series after the 4th season. Her character simply went upstairs one episode and never came back down, with no explanation offered to viewers. Many attributed this shocking decision to the show's increasing focus on Urkel, with traditional family storylines taking a back seat to the nerdy neighbor's antics. But what viewers at home never knew was that while Michelle Thomas was bringing laughter to millions as Myra Monkhouse, she was privately facing a devastating diagnosis. In 1997, while still appearing regularly on Family Matters, Michelle was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, intra-abdominal desmoplastic, a small round cell tumor. Doctors discovered a lemon-sized tumor that required immediate attention. Despite the serious nature of her diagnosis, Michelle made the difficult decision to keep her condition private. Not only did she hide it from the public, but many of her co-stars remained unaware of her battle as well. Whatever her reasons, Michelle continued working through her treatment, showing remarkable strength and professionalism. However, as her condition worsened during the final season of Family Matters in 1997 to 1998, the physical toll became impossible to hide completely. Observant fans might have noticed Michelle's screen time gradually decreasing during this final season. Her appearances became shorter and less frequent, a practical necessity as she fought her private battle with cancer. Eventually, the physical demands of regular filming became too much. Michelle had to leave the show entirely in 1998, shortly before Family Matters was canceled. Her final appearance as Myra occurred with little fanfare, giving no hint to viewers of the serious health crisis that was unfolding off-camera. In any case, Michelle Thomas also faced challenges that extended beyond her health. After the initial surgery to remove the tumor, doctors were initially optimistic about her recovery. However, the cancer returned unexpectedly, requiring another emergency operation. Throughout this ordeal, Michelle maintained a brave face in public. She continued pursuing acting opportunities when her health permitted, and even took a role on The Young and the Restless in 1998. To many in the industry, she appeared to be simply transitioning between projects, with no indication of her medical crisis. Like many actors facing uncertain career prospects, Michelle encountered financial challenges during this period. At one point, she reportedly worked briefly as a waitress in Palmdale, California, far from the Hollywood spotlight, to make ends meet while continuing medical treatments.
I remember even for a while she worked as a waitress, and she would work way out, like Palmdale, because she didn't want anybody in LA seeing her.
This struggle to find stability in both her health and career speaks to the precarious nature of life as a television actor, particularly for those typecast in specific roles. Michelle had become known primarily as Myra Monkhouse, and breaking free from that identity to secure new, meaningful roles proved difficult, especially while hiding a serious illness. By late 1998, Michelle Thomas's condition had worsened significantly. After another surgical procedure, when doctors discovered a new cancerous growth had ruptured, Michelle made the decision to return home for Thanksgiving, wanting to spend time with her family during what would be her final holiday season. As her health rapidly declined, those closest to her rallied around, Among them was her ex-boyfriend Malcolm Jamal Warner, who, despite their romantic relationship having ended, remained a close friend and confidant. He flew from New York to be by her side during her final days. On December 22, 1998, at just 30 years old, Michelle Thomas passed away in Manhattan, surrounded by loved ones, including her mother, Finjuar, her brother, and Warner. The vibrant actress who had brought so much joy to television audiences was gone, leaving behind a legacy of laughter and unfulfilled potential. The news of Michelle Thomas's death sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, but it particularly devastated her former Family Matters castmates. Many were stunned not only by her passing, but by the revelation that she had been battling cancer, something most hadn't known during their time working together. Jaleel White, whose character had shared so many scenes with Michelle's Myra, was profoundly affected by her loss. In his 2024 memoir, Growing Up Urkel, White reflected on Thomas's passing, describing the profound sense of loss felt by everyone who had worked with her.
Michelle Thomas was a part of my confidence building, and she made herself a part of that. And then our relationship just kind of blossomed from there.
In death, Michelle had accomplished what the producers couldn't always achieve in life, bringing the Family Matters family together in a moment of genuine emotion. The tragic story of Michelle Thomas played out against a backdrop of increasing tensions and controversies that had been brewing on the Family Matters set for years. What began as a wholesome family sitcom focused on the Winslow family had transformed into something entirely different. The catalyst for this transformation was undoubtedly Jaleel White's Steve Urkel character. Originally intended for a single guest appearance, Urkel's popularity exploded beyond anyone's expectations. Viewers couldn't get enough of the high-waisted pants, thick glasses, and nasal "Did I do that?" catchphrase.
Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that?
Producers quickly recognized they had struck gold, and Urkel was rapidly elevated from occasional guest to the show's central character. This dramatic shift in focus created ripple effects that would ultimately tear at the fabric of the production. You see, Jo Marie Payton, who played Harriet Winslow, was the heart of the Winslow family on screen. But off-camera, the dynamics were very different. By the time Jaleel White's Steve Urkel skyrocketed in popularity, tensions between the cast and crew had started to show. According to Jo Marie Payton, the disagreement occurred during an episode where Jaleel's character, Steve Urkel, had to portray a girl. Payton disagreed with the creative direction and stood her ground, leading to an explosive confrontation. Payton described the scene as deeply uncomfortable, noting that tensions escalated to the point where Jaleel's anger alarmed those on set. Jaleel White's rapid rise to fame as Steve Urkel wasn't easy, and it didn't come without consequences. Introduced as a one-off character, Urkel's overwhelming popularity shifted the entire focus of the show, sidelining the Winslow family's original dynamic. This shift caused friction, especially with Jo Marie Payton, who was brought onto Family Matters to continue her role from Perfect Strangers. What started as a show about the Winslow family quickly became The Steve Urkel Show, and some cast members were not happy.
Jo Marie and Reggie at that time were very sensitive to putting black men in dresses, and they heaped that on me.
I didn't see how I was stepping on anybody's toes. I was taking anybody's shine, White said in the uncensored special. He later added, "And I don't need to rehash that with the adults over and over again. They know what it is." While disagreements on set aren't unusual, the alleged near altercation between Payton and White shocked many. According to Payton, White's reaction to the disagreement went beyond frustration. It became physical. In 2022, Payton revealed that White wanted to physically fight her after she opposed a scene in which he portrayed Urkel's gangster cousin OGD, which stood for Original Gangsta Dog.
You better check that attitude at the door.
He didn't have the etiquette that maybe I and some others had. There was one time he actually wanted to physically fight me. I was going to go in there and whip his behind.
She later claimed that crew members had to intervene to calm the situation. This revelation raised questions about White's behavior and whether his status as the breakout star shielded him from accountability. Some fans have argued that Jaleel was just a teenager dealing with immense pressure, but others believe that doesn't excuse his actions. Peyton herself has alluded to this, saying, "I've only ever had love for Jaleel. He was young, and we've all grown since then." Years later, Jaleel White addressed some of the claims in his memoir, Growing Up Urkel. But instead of directly tackling the allegations, he seemed to deflect blame back onto Peyton with a subtle dig. In the book, White didn't address the feud head-on, but wrote about his co-stars, hinting he was difficult in press interviews. "Am I difficult to work with? I wondered for the first time. They've said publicly that I was spoiled, but was I really?" he wrote. "I think we were all affected by certain privileges and autonomies, so I try to refrain from revisionist history or being the pot to call the kettle black." White claimed that Peyton had a habit of being late to table readings, and even recounted one incident where she allegedly told the cast she had to drive back home because her rearview mirror fell off her car, so she brought her other Mercedes. Whenever I hear in interviews, 30 years after the fact, the different ways in which I might have been a difficult co-star, it's safe to say I never held up any table readings because I had to go back home and get my other Mercedes, White quipped in his memoir. Fans were quick to call out White's remarks, accusing him of being petty and refusing to take accountability. Social media lit up with debates, with one user commenting, "What a petty bee," and the fact that he did not address Jo Marie's accusations in his book suggested to me that he indeed did what he was accused of doing, which was trying to fight her because he was feeling his gumball-eyed self. Now he wants to bring up her supposedly being late for table readings? He just doesn't want to take accountability for his shitty attitude and deflecting from it by snarking at Jo Marie with his sassy self. Talking about the kids like me and the adults didn't. Classic narcissism. Not everyone who dislikes you is a hater or bitter or jealous. Maybe they just don't like you because your actions and attitude were a reflection of an asshole they did not want to deal with. Jo Marie Peyton's departure from Family Matters during its final season added fuel to the fire. While Peyton has cited burnout and creative differences as her reasons for leaving, many believe the alleged altercation with White played a significant role. Her replacement, Judy Ann Elder, took over the role of Harriet Winslow, but fans immediately noticed the awkward transition.
Harriet, how are you? Harriet!
What are we talking about, dear?
In any case, it wasn't just Jo Marie whom Jaleel was feuding with. From misunderstandings with Kelly Williams to a contentious history with Jamie Foxworth, White's off-screen feuds reveal a far less wholesome reality. Kelly Williams, who played Laura Winslow, was central to Steve Urkel's storyline. On screen, Laura was the object of Steve's undying affection, and eventually, his wife. Off-screen, White and Williams initially shared a bond, but it deteriorated during the 5th season due to a misunderstanding. We stopped speaking altogether. A misunderstanding caused permanent discord between us, White revealed in his memoir. He explained that despite their professional dynamic, the tension stemmed from personal feelings. Even the time that we had on the set and we were not getting along so great, I was doing 2 things in describing that. I was showing some adolescent immaturity and some reality about getting along with your co-stars. The misunderstanding grew so significant that White and Williams actively avoided making eye contact during scenes. Despite this, they managed to reconcile during a scene break. Reflecting on the experience, White said, "There was a part of me that wanted to give you a peek behind the curtain of television production nuances, the schedules, the demands, the things that feel unfair, and the things that feel fair. He admitted that the fallout had a lasting impact on his approach to work relationships. "I vowed never again to catch feelings for an actress I was working with." White also acknowledged how such tensions are not uncommon in Hollywood, offering a glimpse into the pressures of the industry. "We're not the only actors who've done that. Some pretty famous shows have had actors who have looked to the side of each other's head and didn't even look at each other, and you can't tell at home." This insight served as both a revelation of his own experiences and a defense against potential criticism. While White's fallout with Williams was eventually mended, his relationship with Jamie Foxworth, who played Judy Winslow, remained fraught with tension. Foxworth's character was written off after 4 seasons, and White's memoir sheds light on the underlying issues. According to White, Foxworth's mother and other parents on the set resented the attention his character received. He alleged, "Her mother felt I was taking lines of dialogue away from her daughter, which I heavily disagreed with." He also claimed there were attempts to exclude him from communal activities with the original child cast members, such as their shared classroom sessions. White didn't mince words when critiquing Foxworth's on-screen performance. "If Jaime were as funny in the role of Judy Winslow as she was in our studio classroom, she would have never left the show." He elaborated that Judy Winslow's lack of storylines was a reflection of her struggles in the role. The Judy Winslow character appeared in 95 episodes out of a total 215. In 4 seasons on the show until 1993, Judy Winslow was never given a single storyline. Education also played a role in Foxworth's departure. White wrote, "Her poor grades eventually led to her being fired from the show because the studio teacher wouldn't risk his license if she failed every subject. Her mother did not prioritize her education." While these claims remain White's perspective, they underscore the bitterness that lingered long after Foxworth left the show. Years later, White and Foxworth crossed paths at his 30th birthday party, but the encounter was far from a reconciliation. "Her presence at my party that night felt like a photo op I managed to dodge, and I wanted no part." Despite this, White expressed a desire for closure. "If Jaime ever wanted to share her story with me, or exchange certain apologies, I'd be down to listen sincerely, but not as a reunion on anyone's podcast for a fast buck or viral moment." The tragic irony of Michelle Thomas's story is that she joined Family Matters during this period of transition and turmoil. As a newcomer to an established cast already grappling with significant changes, she entered a working environment far different from what viewers perceived through their television screens. The television industry has long perfected the art of hiding uncomfortable truths from its audience. When Michelle Thomas began missing episodes during the final season of Family Matters, few viewers suspected the heartbreaking reason behind her absence. Instead, her decreased screen time was seamlessly worked around, with other characters and storylines expanded to fill the void. This sleight of hand, this ability to conceal reality behind carefully crafted fiction, is one of television's most practiced skills. The same techniques had been employed years earlier when Jamie Foxworth's character disappeared without explanation. Rather than acknowledge the budgetary and creative decisions that led to her removal, producers simply rewrote reality, creating a world where Judy Winslow had never existed. This pattern continued when Jo Marie Payton departed midway through the final season. Rather than address the behind-the-scenes reasons for the original Harriet's exit, the show simply presented viewers with a new actress in the role, with no acknowledgement of the change. Television's ability to rewrite its own narrative extends beyond cast changes. The entire transformation of Family Matters from a family-centered show to the Steve Urkel show occurred gradually enough that many viewers barely noticed how dramatically the series had shifted from its original concept. As Family Matters concluded its 9-season run in 1998, it bore little resemblance to the show that had premiered nearly a decade earlier. What had begun as a spin-off focused on the Winslow family had morphed into a vehicle for a character who wasn't even part of the original concept. The final season was particularly troubled. With Jo Marie Payton's departure, Michelle Thomas's declining health and eventual exit, and continuing tensions among remaining cast members, the production limped toward its conclusion. The series finale centered around a storyline that should have featured Michelle prominently, Steve Urkel's choice between Myra and Laura Winslow. But with Thomas unable to participate fully due to her illness, the storyline had to be hastily reworked, creating an unsatisfying conclusion to her character's arc.
And this country is out of control.
For a show titled Family Matters, the irony was painful. The fictional family at the heart of the series had been fractured both on screen and off. Judy had vanished years earlier. The original Harriet had been replaced, and Myra appeared only sporadically before disappearing entirely. Behind the scenes, the real family of actors and crew had experienced their own fractures. Resentments over screen time, frustrations over creative direction, and the enormous pressure of maintaining a long-running network series had taken their toll on interpersonal relationships. And in the midst of this turmoil, one cast member was fighting a private battle far more significant than any on-set disagreement. Michelle Thomas faced her cancer diagnosis with remarkable courage, continuing to work when possible and keeping her struggle largely to herself. When Family Matters aired its final episode on July 17, 1998, Michelle Thomas was in the final months of her life. She would pass away just 5 months later on December 22, 1998, at the age of 30, a tragic coda to a show that had brought laughter to millions but concealed so much pain behind its familiar facade. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.